right, guys, welcome back. It's Monday. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend. It's Monday, you know what that means. It's Metagame Monday. Before we get into the thick of things, let me just share a few messages. If you guys want to support my journey, read my strategy articles, take advantage of my guides, you should head over to my Metafy page. I started it around a couple of weeks ago. I've been very happy with the support. But obviously, I could always use more. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely head over there. I highly suggest going for the $10 tier. That will give you access to all guides, all articles, and also let you play in the Eco Cup, which is going to be a reoccurring legacy tournament. Very flexible scheduling, and I will have VIPs in the tournament every time. The first go around, I had Eternal Weekend winner Boschenroll, Eternal Weekend winner Larson, against 14 members, and this time I'm hoping to get to 32 players. So yeah, if that's anything that you're interested in, definitely head over there and make sure to use the code ECOFREE. That's ECOFREE for a nice $10 off rather. So that would be 100% off if you go for the this tier. With that being said, let me tell you a little bit more about the Eco Cup 2.0. So hey, we are going to have Eternal Weekend winner Max Dorshan. Very awesome to see Max play this tournament. American Crusher. Then we're going to have Italian Crusher, Matteo Blasi. Simply a paper crusher, and he's about to shoot the sheriff here on the picture. He requested I use this picture, so yeah, why not? It's awesome. And of course, my good friend, Danish Death and Taxes legend, Michael Bonde, also known as Lampalot. I remember this dance when he taught me to the PT. That was just amazing. And we're going to be having some nice treasure chests as prizes. But without further ado, let's get into what we're here for, the Metagame Monday. So, I didn't have much time to play myself. I did have a 4-2 finish in the challenge I played with a Bant Plagon 80 card deck. I have a video on that on the channel from a week or two ago that you can check out if you're interested in that. But let's get into what actually made Top 8. We have 40 decks in front of us, and that's going to tell a story, right? So right off the bat, holy smokes, that's a lot of Tamiyos, right? So we've also been keeping track of, the state of Nadu, the state of Eldrazi, and we also see a cool shift of the painter variety. But we can start off with the elephant in the room here. 11 out of the 40 top 8 slots were occupied by Tamiyo. So most of these decks are blue-black, no Nethergoyf, the more, Baleful Strix Kaito type of deal. But there's also a few Nethergoyf versions in here, and I believe even one version I might have forgot here. Maybe I actually filed that under with the Narset here, a Jeskai controlling version with Tamiyo. So the whole point is the Premier Days deck of the format is not a fast deck anymore. It most likely does not run Nethergoyf. It does not run Delver. So it gives you a bit more time to execute your game plan. And that's exactly how we want to beat this deck. Because yes, it is a tempo deck on paper. I call it a mid-range deck. Because the way it functions is it's not going to beat anybody on turn 4 or 5, right? It's going to trade favorably. It's going to use the Dazes, the Wastelands, the Forces, the Thoughtseizes to make sure the game is played at, their pace. And then it's just going to have high card quality. Tamiyo, Bowmasters. You're going to have Murktide Regents. You're going to have Baragoyf out of the sideboard. And then all of a sudden, you just pound for pound have a well-rounded deck. So I think that's why the deck is doing so well. It's because the rest of the metagame is very unpredictable. Like, just look at this column. Like, this gets bigger every week, right? So you have to address a lot of strategies. And that's what generic cards like Daze, Force of Will, Wasteland, Thoughtseize are good at. So until further notice, Tamiyo-style tempo decks are the decks to beat when it comes to the blue gamers, the decks to play rather when it comes to the blue gamers, and for the rest of the gang, it's going to be the deck to beat as well. So expect that you're under less pressure from Delver and Nethergoyf channeler type cards, but they will have more sustainability going into the mid to late game, so it's not as easy to kind of outvalue them as before. Then I want to talk about what used to be the elephant in the room. So Reanimator is down to 10% of these 40 top 8 slots, which I think is very, very healthy. If I look across here, we only see one copy of Oops, no fast Reanimator. So there's no, tricky way to have the graveyard being super dominant. So I actually really like the spot that Reanimator's in, fluctuating between a handful of copies, and then I believe we even cracked 10 at some point, which is obviously a very high number. But that makes a lot of sense. Reanimator has an amazing week. Players adjust, play more, Nile spell bombs in the main deck. Kozilek's command gets better. People play more ley lines out of Blood Moon decks, whatever the case may be, and then all of a sudden, we're knocking the deck back down a notch. Emry, Lurker of the Loch. So I will just say this. This is not a completely new deck. I missed it last week, where I just looked at titles on MTG Goldfish instead of actually going to the MTGO.com decklist website. And it just said Painter, right? So I just assumed it was Red Painter. And that did hurt the previous video a tiny bit. Somebody was nice enough to tell me in the comments, and I promised to do better. So here we are. It actually turned out that this deck has legs. So what can we play out of a blue Painter deck that red doesn't offer, right? That means we are now playing Stock Up. Stock Up as this just great card to look deeper into your deck. And if you have some kind of combo, it's really strong. So it sees play out of Sneak and Show. It sees play out of blue Painter. And what do they have in common? Ancient Tomb, right? I did casting for the MTGO Creator Showdown on the weekend, which was vintage. And I talked a lot about Stock Up there being good in the format because, one, the card pool is awesome. We have restricted cards to dig for. And two, we have fast mana, right? We're trying to take a page out of Vintage book and apply to Legacy. That means we need fast mana and we need a combo finish in order to justify playing that card, in my humble opinion. If it ends up seeing more play in fair decks, I believe one of the Tamiyo decks had it, fair enough. So this deck checks those boxes. You can play the One Ring. You can loop them with Emry. Emry is very, very good at replaying dead, grindstones and painters as well. Can grind away with stuff like Bauble. Can replay mana acceleration like Petal and Opal. So I really like that deck. And a cool detail here is when you look across that format, there isn't that much white removal. So just imagine your Painter gets plowed, then Emry cannot recur it. But if your Painter gets Fatal Push, your Emry can recur it. So that's a big thing about justifying this deck. I believe it's a Thoughtcast deck as well, and Urza Saga deck as well. So lots of stuff to worry about, and it might be time to think about some Oof, Null Rod, Meltdown, Wrath of the Skies type cards soon. But I didn't really give that too much thought. Next up, we have Eldrazi here. 3 copies. I think it's very healthy. Again, I think it's very disproportionate with the amount of chatter there is about, especially Sowing Mica Spawn. Sure, it can kill basic lands. That's just how it is. It's an expensive Stone Rain. And thankfully, we have good tools to beat that deck. We can Blood Moon them. We can Press of Progress them. We can Wasteland them. We can play a lot of Consigns. We can play more Harbingers. We can do a lot of things here. I'm not worried about this. I always explain it like this. If Mica Spawn was not a card, Eldrazi would be 0%. So right now, it's actually sitting somewhat high. I believe it's above 8% of the field, which is fine. That just means it's like a major player in the metagame. And that's basically what Red Prison used to be, right? So totally fine. We have to account for colorless. Nothing new there. Great deck, putting up good, solid results without blowing anybody out of the water. Then a couple of coveted Jewel variants made it. So basically, how I view it is that's like a take on the old Mystic Forge deck. It's a combination of Painter and Mystic Forge type of thing, right? So we're trying to combo off using artifacts. So that also means if people start playing, Green Sun Zenith decks will run Oof, and white decks will run Stony Silence, and other decks might run Null Rod. We have, let's say people go up to 4 consigns to combat Eldrazi, then all of a sudden we receive a lot of splash damage. So all in all, awesome, but I'm not too, this is not a concern at all for me. This is just an artifact combo deck that is going to do well from time to time. Only 2 copies of Red Prison. That surprises me a little bit. I will say that if the Tamiyo decks are very popular, that's usually, solid mana base, basic island, Tamiyo, basic swamp, Thoughtseize type of openings. That, of course, makes the card Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon way worse, and that is not good, right? And if these decks are also moving away from Delvers and Nethergoyfs, then all of a sudden Chalice for 1 has less of an impact against them as well. So when I think about it, actually makes a lot of sense. I will say it's very strong against all the Saga decks, like, you know, Painter, Eldrazi, the Jewel type type decks. So Blood Moon still has a lot of merit, especially against, you know, the random pile over here and the Saga decks. A couple of Sneak and Show players made it in. I actually think that makes a ton of sense. Sneak and Show is awesome against especially something like Eldrazi, where it's basically saying, yeah, it's a cool little value engine you got going here, and now I'm going to attack you with an Emrakul. Sneak and Show is probably not very good against the Thoughtseize, Daze, Force, Blue Blast, Force Negation deck, but I actually think it's better to play against the mid-range version than against faster versions with Delver. So Sneak and Show might not be a bad call these days. Now we have arrived at the 1 slot pile, which is 12 cards deep this time. So we do have a blue-red tempo deck here. We can put that up here because it's, you know, the Daze decks, right? We have a Teamer version with basically red for Pyroblast and then green for a little bit of card draw out of Questing Druid. We can put the Painter deck with the others, which is basically a colorless deck, so maybe we can make a little bit of a pile here. Ketramose is this Death and Taxes style deck. It was not a Vile version this time, but uses a lot of the same cards, so mid-rangey, good versus Daze is like the profile for this deck. A little bit of control going on here. Breakfast out of the graveyard. Javier Dominguez, the creator of the deck almost 20 years ago, is back at it, so very, very cool to see. Single copy of Oops, also a deck that has received a lot of labels about being too strong, this and that, but Oops is back to being a niche deck, only a percentage point or two of the metagame. Cool big mana deck here with the Cloud Post deck. I believe it did well in the showcase the week before. Grixis Control, that's kind of cool to see. Another Stompy deck, so red-green initiative. Big artifact deck here with Metalwork and Kuldotha Forgemaster. So again, you can win with anything if you want to. And let's see what this was. I believe this was some kind of self-bounce tempo. So in theory, we could put it over here and have this kind of tempo graveyard. I guess Ancient Tomb, assorted combo, I guess, and then some more controlling decks. So the way I do this, so obviously I just I didn't plan like how to categorize them, so there might be a mistake or two in here, but it's just good to see. Okay, so we have Daze, Wasteland, we have Graveyard, we have, you know, Stompy style decks, Ancient Tomb decks basically. Then we have a sorted combo, and then we have a sorted mid-range and control. So it's a good way when you're building your sideboard and you're like, oh, okay, so Graveyard wasn't that big, then maybe I don't need card number 4. I can cut that card. Or if you go, oh, wow, that's a lot of days, I'll definitely make room for Carpet of Flowers in the upcoming week. Or over here, okay, I will play Price of Progress in my Delver deck, or I will play Harbinger in my blue-black mid-range deck, because this pile is so big, right? And then maybe you don't have to have as many, you know, Force Negation type cards for the sneak attack. Maybe Hydroblast is not at its best because Painter versions switch from red to blue. And maybe you don't have to worry too much about, you know, somebody grinding you out because control and mid-range are so relatively low in the metagame. Anyway, that's going to be my breakdown here for Metagame Monday. These episodes are always useful, so I start my day, make a cup of tea, do my research, and I'm making notes of this anyway, so I might as well make it for you guys, and I hope you guys appreciate it. I've definitely been hearing a lot of good feedback, and I'm always happy when you guys let me know that, oh, I use this to tweak this and that, and it's a cool experience, right? I get these messages every week, and definitely keep them coming. I enjoy it quite a bit. With that being said, that brings us to the end of the video. The last thing I want to say is I want to give away some play points. So let me know what you think the solution to this exact metagame is coming into the coming week. What would you play? What kind of sideboard slots are you upping? And the opposite to make room for it, obviously, because every choice in Magic comes with some omissions. That's just the nature of the beast, right? So let me know what you guys think about the solution to the coming week of Legacy, and you'll be in the draw for 120 sweet play points provided by Daybreak Games and Magic Online. So yeah, with that being said, thanks so much for watching, and hope to see you back soon.